Okay, so Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya.
Whoa.
I think Izzy pieces him up. I think he pieces him up with the speed. He's too accurate and he pieces him up. Jan's going to walk in trying to box.
Yep.
And Izzy's just going to touch, kick, and boink. It's going to be over. It's going to be over. I think Luke Rockhold put a lot of pressure on Jan in the wrestling department, but he was able to kind of land a couple good shots in that exchange. Izzy's a different level of stand-up, and Izzy's going to be able to touch him enough to where it's going to make Jan a little bit more hesitant to just walk right in with big power shots. And he's going to get frustrated and try to do more because 185-pounder is piecing him up, or he's just going to sit back and do what Cochino did. And just not do it. Borachin. Yeah, he's just going to sit back and go, hey, I'm just going to just let the fight come to me. And Izzy doesn't have to bring the fight to him. Izzy's just going to touch. He will, but he'll bring it
in his own fashion. Yeah.
He'll just touch and win by points because he's so damn good. I'm going to go with Izzy. I think Izzy's going to piece him up. He's going to be cautious about it because he don't want to get touched. You don't want to get knocked out. But I think the speed, the reach, the range, all those things are going to favor, and this just the style of stand-up. He's so much better on the feet. Maybe not in the boxing area, but he's just so much better on the feet, mixing everything up.
Yeah, I really like what I've seen out of Jan Blachowicz as he's gone to light heavyweight, because people forget that he was a middleweight, and then he went to light heavyweight, and the speed factor has helped him at light heavyweight. And he's a thick, block-headed, take a big shot Polish guy he's a mean, nasty, good fighter. I just always go with technical skill, and I don't rely on the chin, because the chin can only last so long no matter who you are. And I look at this fight, I look at it the same way as you. Technically, I think that Adesanya is just too good in the overall game, especially the stand-up game, because Blachowicz needs to get inside with his boxing.
Yeah.
And Israel is outstanding at keeping guys who want to get into a boxing range away from it. So I could be wrong, but I say that Israel walks away as the champion.
Yeah, I think so. But I guess the next question is does he just vacate that title, the 185-pound title after that?
So he's beaten just about everybody there is there.
Yeah.
And that's the real question is you're looking, there's a couple guys obviously coming up that you can start to say, all right, this, the Kevin Hollands are coming up and, the Buckleys are coming up, if you want to say that, but they're not ready.
Can you pull up the 85-pound weight class? So we had suggested this a while ago, and I had said, look, he can stay at 205, let the 185-pound division just settle in, and you create an interim title, not now, but in a little bit. Okay, after a couple guys have worked their way back up to fight, who I think will still be there will be Whitaker. Whitaker deserves to fight for an interim title if Izzy's going to stay up at 205 for a little bit and defend. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think the guys in the 185-pound division that are there right now, you have Paulo Costa, and you can have Robert Whitaker fight. You can have Paulo Costa, or you can have Robert Whitaker fight Cannonier. There's guys in it. They just fought. Sorry, not Whitaker and Cannonier. Darren Till and Whitaker that can fight, or Cannonier can fight. We got to settle that. I think we got to settle the under those guys in 2, 3, 4, and 5 to see who's going to end up. Vittori, he's there as well. Get those guys to fight each other to see who's going to fight Whitaker for an interim title. That'll take probably another year and a half. That gives Izzy enough time to defend his title one time at 205, and then maybe if he wants to drop back down and have two champs or two titles, or he can vacate the title then at 205 or vacate the title at 185. But there's options to be made there because he has wiped out that division. Like John Jones. He's wiped out that division at 205. Him going to heavyweight, I think was the best thing, like we had talked about last week, for the UFC and for John Jones. He needs a little bit more motivation. He needs something to get him going. And the UFC needs to spark that heavyweight division up. Because the 205, even though he was so dominant and people tuned in, it's been the pillar of the organization all the way back from Frank Shamrock, Tito Ortiz, like that division. Was Randy there or was Vitor Belfort? Who was before Frank? There was no one before Frank, right? Frank was the first, huh? 205-pound champ. The light heavyweight champ was Frank Shamrock was the first, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have Frank Shamrock, you got Tito Ortiz, and then you go on, Chuck and all those guys, Randy. You've got those guys that were all in that list there. I think you let that dust settle below and have those guys fight. And then if Izzy wants to stay at 205, he may be a better fighter at 205. I don't know how much weight he cuts to get to 185, but he may be a better fighter at 205. And if he feels better and is performing the same, it's going to be hard for any of those guys to beat him. Because no matter how much I like Glover Teixeira and Santos and Dominic Reyes and Rakic and those guys, they don't have the technique that he has on the feet. And I don't see any of those guys. None of those guys they don't wrestle well enough, I think, to get him down. They're not better wrestlers than Yoel Romero. And so we get into that conversation.
Coming full circle.
Yeah, coming full circle back to ground one. I don't know who you would have in the 205-pound division. You could run into a whole nother thing where he ends up dominating that weight class as well, depending on how much weight he cuts and he's got the body style for it. And I could see him dominating that weight class as well at 205. There'd be no reason for him to go back to 85 if he kills himself to make the weight. Why?
Well, and I named a couple of guys when I was saying, Kevin Holland and Buckley. Obviously, there's other guys ahead of those guys. There's the Darren Tills that he hasn't fought, but you got to look at the guys he's fought and then other people, because his last fight was against Costa and he smoked him. The fight before that was Romero, which was horrible. It was horrible, but he had beaten Whitaker before that. And Whitaker beat Till, so it's one of those. There's really, like you said, he kind of cleared out the division.
Yeah,
there's really no one that you can look at and go, man, who's the guy that's gonna, this is the guy that we think can actually, test him. It's gonna be a while before that guy emerges in my mind, because you have Whitaker, who's fought him and lost. You can say Cannonier, but Cannonier lost to Whitaker. You can say Till.